Good evening, my name is Ross Nova, and we'll do some reaction video of Governor Walz, possible of impeachment, possibly of him maybe stepping down. I'm very curious to see where things are going with Minnesota. I personally don't wish this would happen, but it is happening because of things that have happened for the past 7 years, going on 8. I'll pause often and kind of talk about my thoughts. That way you know what my thoughts are to make better decisions. So here we go.
Have been filed against Governor Tim Walz in Minnesota. This is obviously following the whole fraud scandal.
What we have here is Article 1, violation of oath of office through concealment of fraud.
So, using his office to conceal fraud, I think when he entered office, he realized that there is fraud, right? Number of whistleblowers, even people working in the government, have mentioned there is fraud. They were shouting fraud. News networks were shouting fraud. Did anything happen? Did he take any actions against that? No. And personally, I knew there was fraud. I knew there was people using the government to their benefits. Was I able to say anything at that time? No, I was just an Uber driver at that time. I had no say. And I think a lot of people knew there was fraud. They just didn't feel they can voice their concerns.
2, interference with oversight of investigation.
Very much so. He would literally fire people who don't agree or that were saying there's fraud and replace them with other people that were blind to the fraud.
Article 3, prioritizing political considerations over lawful administration.
Yes.
And Article 4, failure to steward public funds, which...
That's the big one, in my opinion. To be a good steward of the tax money, right? People worked hard. Last year, I was averaging 60, almost 70 hours per week. There's one week where I hit 93 hours in a single week, and then $1,000 gone in taxes, right? And that's where this money went to Walz, and he mismanaged it, gave it away for free to where went overseas or bought cars, for people that use it for fraud. So
I think of all of them, I feel like Article 4 is on its face the most easily provable, based off especially the whistleblowers that have said multiple times that they were made aware of this and yet did nothing.
That's the big one. The big one that you really look.
That's what makes me so angry. And my worst fear is that we would get someone else elected and it's going to be almost the same thing. Maybe not as bad. Maybe there will be few protection to protect the taxpayers from abusing it. There will be some barriers and stuff, but we will still have to trust the government to manage the money. Why? Is there better ways for taxpayers' money to be protected, to be managed, is there better ways to oversee it? I think there is. In fact, I have few ideas that would help protect from future fraud. And I'll go into that video either tonight or tomorrow sometimes to talk about how we can protect the hard-working tax money, right?
And obviously they're saying concealment of fraud, all these things. But the one thing we can at least probably all agree on is that the oversight was just simply not there.
Right.
That no one was really checking up on it, or the people that were checking up on it weren't doing a very good job at it.
So the oversight was there. They just refused to listen to them, fired them, and replaced with other people that were blind to it. So the oversight was there. period. Okay? But they fired all those people. They replaced them with people that didn't know what they were doing. They were blind to it. Say, hey, just sit in this office, look at some computer screens, and get paid $30 an hour to sit there, 40 hours a week, and get your paycheck, go home, and that's it. That's what they did pretty much. And we have to do, as citizens, we have to do a lot better job in protecting that from happening ever again.
Right. When it comes to Article 4, failure to steward public funds, I mean, I think negligence is very easily provable in this moment. Now, the others are a little more political. We'll see what they say. We'll see where it ends up. But there's also an interesting thing where you told me, Will, that the people who would be deciding on this, the majority are Republicans.
That's right. So when you...
Thank God. But my biggest question is, where were they? Where were they for the past 7 years? Maybe 3 years ago they didn't have the majority, but they were still there. They did not know about that either? That's my question. Who knew, whether it's from the Republicans or Democrats, and who didn't? If you didn't, why did you not know about it? If you did, why didn't you speak up? Yell, jump out the building and say, hey, there's fraud here. I think there's blame on both sides of the party here, okay? It's not just Democrats, it's not just Republicans, it's not just the Governor Walz, it's everybody together failed, okay? Numbers were not adding up. People had to have $9 billion doesn't just disappear overnight, right? I'm more thinking more like $20 billion, not $9 billion, you know? I'm thinking it's more $20 billion. Money does not just disappear like that. Someone had to know. In fact, I think everybody knew. But they turned a blind eye to it. Why? Were they scared? Was the Republicans scared to say something? Were they all wanting to keep on their seats and so they ignored it because they just wanted to make sure they win the next election again and said nothing? That's what I want to know, you know. And I think there should be investigations across the entire frickin' administration. All the senators, all the House members, everybody. And ask who knew and why didn't they speak up?
Look at it, how does impeachment work in...
If an Uber driver like myself knew there's fraud, all I do is pick up people, talk to them, and drop them off, and put all the pieces together, me as an Uber driver, they've had to have known. Seriously. It makes me angry.
Minnesota. We are very familiar here with impeachment in the U.S. House of Representatives on the national level. Well, it's very similar in the state level in Minnesota. So articles of impeachment based off of Article 8 of the Minnesota Constitution, they begin, as it does federally, in the state House of Representatives. And impeachment is brought there, and then it is decided through a concurrence of the House of Representatives. A majority, simple majority is all you need to get there. Right now, the breakdown in the Minnesota House, they have 134 potential seats. The Republicans hold 67. The Democrats have 65, and there are 2 vacant seats. So as of right now, the
all Republicans better vote on this. If 1 or 2 don't vote, I'll be questioning you next.
have a 2-seat majority.
And Democrats. It better be majority of the Democrats as well, too. We're going to find out if you're involved or not.
Meaning there is a pathway where this could not just be articles of impeachment introduced, but an impeached governor, which then goes to trial in the Minnesota Senate. Now, the breakdown there are 34 Democrats and 33 Republicans, so a majority held by Democrats. However, very similar to what we have in the U.S. Senate needing a conviction on the presidential level. You have to have a trial and then a conviction by 2/3 of the senators present.
I get Governor Walz may be impeached, you know, that's fine. Cameras are on him, so most likely he will get impeached, hopefully. My question is, what about the rest of the people? What about the mayor of New York, Fry, right? It was in his city that happened, a lot of fraud, right? He must have known something as well, too, right? I think we need to look at everybody and clean house, okay? I think we need to look at everybody that's been involved, or could have been involved as well too. I don't think we should just look at Governor Walz. I don't think we should just narrow to him only and then forget about everybody else that was involved or could have known about this but didn't speak up. Because if you didn't speak up, you're just as guilty as they are. They ignored it, just like Walz, and you kept letting it happen. That's just as bad, if not worse, right?
Unlikely, but it does say proceedings could get underway next month. That's when the House reconvenes, and the state would hold a trial and determine, as you said, whether he is guilty in order to be potentially removed from office. But in general, we know that this process is not fun for anyone to be involved in.
It's
so it does
exhausting.
beg the question of
Takes
how far
too
can
much
even
time,
just
I
the
think.
threat, the loom of having a impeachment trial, what does it mean for you? Now, Tim Walz has obviously said not guilty, and he's obviously said, I'm not going anywhere. He's been pretty clear about that.
What is interesting and what does differ from the U.S. Constitution when it comes to impeachment is section.
What about the lieutenant governor, that female? She's been behind the scenes. I've not really seen her in front of news, or I've not really seen her much. I'm not even sure who she is. What about her? She must have known about it as well too, right? Trickle down, right? Start at the top, but you have to go down to and get everybody below him, right? Everybody.
Section 3 of Article 8 of the Minnesota Constitution says suspension. No officer shall exercise the duties of his office after he has been impeached and before his acquittal. So what it appears to read here is that the Constitution allows for the suspension of, it would appear, the governor or any officer that has been impeached while they are awaiting the adjudication through the trial in the Senate. And then if they are acquitted, resume their duties. If they are not acquitted, obviously they are removed from office. So I feel like that caveat there makes it a lot more higher stakes than it necessarily is in the U.S. Impeachment in the federal level, because of that suspension level. Now, they do have to serve the individual after they have been impeached within 20 days. I feel like it'll be a lot quicker than that, where they would
it seems like it's
deliver
fast.
the articles of impeachment. But once again, we've seen how a federal trial in the U.S. Senate at that level of impeachment, it takes time. They impeached the president in that first term. Then there was a little bit of delay when the articles of impeachment were marched over to the Senate. Then they get it all set up. And then it took several weeks. So potentially at the time where you are seeing a lot of chaos in Minnesota, not just...
Well, and if he does get impeached and he steps down, or during a time of impeachment process, that's going to leave a big gap, right? Everything has to freeze, and I think everything should be frozen at that point, right? All the finances, all the programs, everything should freeze temporarily. And I think that would be a good time to go in there and track everything of where things are, right? Where the money is going, where it has been going, where it's still going, and start going, track it down to the last dollar at this point, last penny, right? And start, if it doesn't make sense, freeze it, even make sure you put a red flag on it, and freeze it until this further investigation has been done. Like I said, I have a plan to prevent fraud in the future that's a lot more aggressive, a lot more transparent. I think I will do the video next on that transparency program that I have in mind. I think would help where it doesn't just rely, where you just don't rely on the government itself, but you rely on you yourself, the citizens, that can also go in and check as well too. There'll be a lot more moving parts, but I think it will work, and it'll be probably one of the first programs in the U.S. When it comes to transparency and spending. I kind of can't wait to do that video. It's gonna be fun.
At the level of the fraud issue, but with all of the ICE things, all of the stuff that's going on, that they could be potentially without a governor being suspended during this time for a matter of weeks.
Yeah. So does that push this situation where Tim Walz, who already announced running again, does this push him to potentially?
And with all the ICE going on, is that a distraction, of the fraud? As I've asked in my video, I think it is a big distraction. I think Omar, the mayor, they're all yelling, screaming, telling people to go out, protest. People are watching more about the protest, less about the fraud. And so we have to make sure we're on top of this fraud, okay? That's the forefront, right? To make sure that no one gets away from it, right? So we can juggle with, we can juggle both at the same time, but we have to make sure we keep our eyes on both, but mainly on the fraud.
Decide to step aside. There's 4 articles of impeachment here. One of them we feel like is pretty darn clear, which is failure to steward public funds, which is essentially neglecting his job and making sure public funds are spent appropriately.
It's been going on for
now you go through
8
fraud,
years.
covering fraud, all those things. Those are a bit more speculative. There will have to be a trial. There will have to be evidence. But it is not fun to go through this, and I feel maybe for Tim Walz only in that this is not a.
And all those people that were fired, the whistleblowers, they should get their jobs back, because clearly they were fired because they want to keep a lid on all this, right?
Process to put you and your family through, but you know what? The people of Minnesota clearly have had enough. I also think this shows
Sometimes I wonder, did Minnesota people had enough of this, or are we just blind? I was like, I know they're minorities. We want to help them. We want to feed the hungry children. We want to take care of the daycares. We want to have all these healthcare programs funded by the Somalians that we can give to them. Like, at what point do we stop being gullible? At what point do we stop and say enough is enough? Right? We've been holding your hand, helping you walk for 8-9 years, right? It's time for you to walk on your own. We need to pull back the funding and actually take care of what actually matters: our roads, our schools, our infrastructure, things that truly matter, the benefits the Minnesota as a whole, not so much certain groups, right? We gotta stop looking, we gotta stop thinking, let's help certain types of groups. More so, let's help Minnesota as a whole. What can we do to help Minnesota as a whole, okay? We gotta remove the race, we gotta remove minorities, we gotta remove color, we gotta remove everything. We gotta look at Minnesota as a whole. How can we help majority of the population overall? How can, there's many laws and good things that we can pass that helps everybody, not just certain people, okay? And I think that's why we should truly concentrate, is how can we help everybody as a whole and stop giving crutches to the minorities. Or I'm a minority, and I don't want that crutch, right? I don't want people to be helping me all the time, right? I want to stand on my own 2 feet. I want to have pride in myself, that if I accomplish something, I can say I did it myself. I didn't have help from the government, right? Only those, it's okay to ask help for once in a while, right? Hey, I'm starving, right? I need help. I'm gonna go to the food shelter, get some food because I need help, right? To get me through this month until my next paycheck, right? It's okay to ask for help. I just don't want to have a crutch for the rest of my life, because I'll never be able to stand proud of myself, And I think I do believe, getting a little bit off topic here, that government is like a drug, right? You get hooked on it, and you want more, and you want more, and all of a sudden you're so reliant and dependent on that drug, on that government, to where you feel like if I, stop, accepting help from the government, I'll be in trouble, and so you continue, like you don't trust in yourself anymore. Government is like a drug, okay? We need to put a complete stop in the government getting inside your life, right? Because government is not there to make you rich, right? They're there to make you tread on water, where you're barely afloat, right? They give you just enough for you to tread on water, not to swim to the island. They give you just enough to tread on water, right? But if you stop relying on the government and you actually start putting the energy a little bit and start swimming instead of treading, you'll get to the island. You can build a house. You can get food. You can actually survive, right? But the government wants you to tread water for the rest of your life and be dependent on them. And so when elections come, you're like, oh, I need that drug. I need to have them, win so I can continue taking my drugs. So if they lose, the Democrats lose, I won't get that drug, and therefore I'm not going to succeed in life, right? That's how I feel about the government in general. We cannot rely on the government to take care of all it needs. Lean on it when you need help, right? If you had a bad month and you need help with rent, lean on it. That's what they're there for. But the moment you keep leaning on them each and every month, it becomes like a drug. It's very addicting. I know people with food stamps and stuff, I've seen many videos where they are reliant on that. They don't know how to work because they've been reliant since they were 18 years old, and that's all they know is food stamps and using that same money, right? So we need to cut off the drug, the government, off of our lives and be free from them and actually grow. Because that's the only way you could get strong is to, trip and fall, right? Because when you trip and fall, you get back up and you're stronger than before, right? And then you move forward. So we have to cut the government from our lives, okay? Now, if you're handicapped, if you really need it because you physically cannot work and stuff, that's a different story, right? I'm happy to help, right? I try to help as many people as is possible, right? One guy earlier today at Hy-Vee, he couldn't afford the grapes. I said, I got this. So I paid for the grapes, right? Even though I can't really afford the grapes either. I'm struggling just as much as you are, okay? I got $4,000 of debt. I'm living paycheck to paycheck at the moment, right? And so I'm doing whatever I can to make that dollar, right? I want to go to a food shelf. I want to ask the government for help. But I know my next paycheck will cover the mortgage, right? I have enough for the mortgage. I got enough for a little bit of food, right? So I will make it. And hopefully my next paycheck will start paying off some of that credit card debt of $4,000, right? So I don't want the government to be my drug. I don't want that to fix all my problems and I start relying on it, right? We need to fix our own problems and stop relying on the government. It's that simple, okay? I think I should do a video on that too. Government being a drug. That'd be a great video.
Broad scale of American politics when it comes to these states, because you think of Minnesota as a pretty blue state in terms of, yes, there's been times where it's gone more Republican. It is more maybe.
I would disagree. Minneapolis, St. Paul is deep blue. Anywhere else in the state is red as the blood that we bleed, Ooh, I like that slogan. It truly is. The whole state is pretty much red except Minneapolis and St. Paul. And those people in Minneapolis and St. Paul, they have to ask, why is everybody else red except these two cities? Why is that?
you could say it's Midwestern blue collar. It definitely isn't as full blown as you'd expect. But when you actually look at the House and the way that they are going, there's quite a few. There's more Republicans at this point that counterbalance what's going on. It's much like many states. It's kind of a 50-50, 60-40 kind of situation.
Well, and on national level, yes, it is definitely more of a blue state. You don't see it as a type of swing state like Michigan has been, like Wisconsin has been recently, of those Midwest states.
It kind of feels like it should be.
Well, and once again, even their Democrat Party there is the Democrat Farm Labor Party. It's not even the Democrat Party of Minnesota. It has its own unique name, the Farm Labor Party, which is interesting because I feel like the majority of those in agriculture in Minnesota are no longer represented by the Democrat Party as it is today.
My understanding is it's never been represented by the Democrats. In fact, most of the agriculture, most of the farmers, rural area have been Republicans. It's just one family, right, will have 7 acres of land, right, before you see the next farm, right? We're so spread out, right? That makes us not as many of us because we're so spread out, right? So that's why there's less Republicans. Trust me, if most of the people lived in rural areas and stuff like that, this would be a red state by far, right? But the fact is, there's few families that own large areas of property, acres of land that they farm. There's a whole lot less people farming than there is people in the city. So that's why it's always been a blue state for a long time, right? I don't even know when it was a red state. I can't remember when there was a Republican governor, So, I think I don't think he's from Minnesota. He can't be if he doesn't know that. I've noticed it's red everywhere except Minneapolis and St. Paul. Farmers oftentimes will vote Republican.
And especially with how liberal and how far left it's gone. There's a lot of rural area in Minnesota, but yes, the population centers are still very liberal. When it comes to a national election, a federal election, they are typically going to go more blue.
Yes.
But you do have to realize when you're talking about micro level representation, you are talking about people being able to select their representatives in a state house. Yeah. Tim Walz in an election year. Remember, he just dropped out of the race.
Yeah.
So
he's going to be done.
This is going to be a stain on the party as well.
Very big
that
stain.
He could be impeached.
Because if a Democrat wins again for governor position, we would have to ask, did we learn from our mistakes? Like, why are we keep voting someone from a Democratic Party that we're going to keep making these mistakes, right? Democrats have been running Minnesota State for a long time, right? And they dropped the ball in a major way. And it wasn't just for this incident, for a long time, right? We keep creating more and more programs, right? And money keeps being spent everywhere, instead of trying to be more conservative with our spending and being a good steward of the taxes, we're just spending money everywhere. Oh, that's a cool program. Here's $10 million. Oh, I like that too. Here's another $10 million. Oh, I get sometimes, I love helping people. I want to serve people. But at the same time, we have to control how much we help, right? Like I said, government is like a drug, okay? You cannot rely on the government all the time to solve all your problems. And the thing is, I believe part of the reason why everything has gone up is because of the government. That's the number one reason why. Because government drives the prices up. It's not the businesses, it's not the rich people, it's the government, right? For example, one of the biggest things I believe is college. College goes up, right? So before government got into college, before government started giving money towards to help college students, right? College, let's say, costs 10 grand for 4 years, right? And the government says, well, we need to help students to go to college, right? So we're gonna, based on your income, we're gonna give you money to go to school, right? And the college people are like, oh, well, instead of charging 10 grand, let's charge 15 grand because the 5 grand the government is gonna pay, right? And so now the tax people are on the hook for the extra 5 grand to help people go to college, you know? And so that's what's driving the price of college, is the government going inside the college saying, hey, we want to help students get these programs, these degrees, right? And so they spend 5 grand, they give 5 grand to each student, and so instead of, you know, paying 10 grand, and all of a sudden you go down to 5 grand, which that's how it's supposed to be. College, it's a business, right? It's like, well, we got additional 5 grand, let's jack up the price, because the students are already paying 10 grand. They're okay with paying 10 grand, but the government stuck their nose in it and say, hey, we want to help with college too. It's like, yeah, you can help with college. We're just gonna quietly increase it to, you know, to 15 grand, and Minnesota can help pay additional 5 grand. Does it really help the college student in the end? No. Whenever government gets whenever government gets inside to help, it makes it worse, in fact. And that's what I believe is happening. That's why the prices of everything goes up, right? The more government gets involved in anything, the worse things usually gets, right? The more rules, well, I'll go into that more later, but just trust me on that, right? Programs oftentimes cost a lot more because businesses know the government is going to pay for majority of it, so they jack up the price. Period. Simple as that.
During this election year,
I want to take a call coming in from Minnesota. Let's go to Jason. You're on the air.
I just want to say the people of Minnesota has seen this coming for a long time. We've seen the fraud, even at the county level.
And no
We've
one
seen
did
it for
anything
years.
about it.
It's a joke that we talk about at the bar.
It is.
We're just ready to be over and done with this. We know it's there.
We're ready to be done and over with this, but are we truly? Are we actually going to change our ways? Are we going to change the way we vote to make it done and over with? If we elect another Democrat to become the governor, will it truly be over? Probably not. Nothing's going to change. Most likely they'll promise, you know, we'll make it harder for fraud, but no. You're gonna maybe have one office, hire someone that sits there and watch screen on the computer to make sure there's no fraud, and that's as far as it goes, most likely. There's really no accountability.
Want it to be over and done with. We're sick and tired of it.
I guess that's going to be the definition of what does over and done with it mean, because you could have over and done with it, he's impeached. You can have over and done with it as Tim Walz is going to be out in 8 months anyway, or 10 months anyway.
well, I have a question for you, Jayden, as well, because once again, Tim Walz was running for re-election. Now he's trying to open up for a potential different Democrat candidate to retain the governorship there. Are you hearing a lot of people that are fed up with the party, not just Tim Walz, that want to see a difference and a change in leadership in the state?
Yes, I've been hearing it from a lot of people, but
You know, and the funny thing is, even in Robbinsdale, the mayor in Robbinsdale said that he will not raise the taxes. He's going to try to maintain everything, right? And as soon as he walks into office, taxes went up. You know, so people may vote the same, you know, because they believe it's over, but it's not over. It's just the beginning.
a lot of people
Or it just has a new face to the fraud.
are terrified of Amy Klobuchar.
Yeah.
They know that's who's going to be running next.
So I believe if Amy Klobuchar wins, she's going to nominate Tim Walz for her seat. So he will never be removed. They'll just switch seats, and it's going to continue with the fraud. I think that's what could happen, right? They're going to do like a background deal, handshakes, wink, wink.
They're terrified of it. And I'm from northern Minnesota, and we know that we don't matter. It's Minneapolis and St. Paul. That's all that matters. And we're sick.
I think he's wrong. I think northern Minnesota and the surrounding areas, they do matter. And it's the city people that has to wake up, right? Because with their votes, Minneapolis and St. Paul and the surrounding areas, it could easily turn. We just need half of the city, one of the cities, convince one of the cities, either Minneapolis or St. Paul, to convince them to, hey, let's change. It can't be any worse, right? Because if you vote the same, it's not going to change. So let's change our votes and see if that makes it better. See if we can have more money in our pockets, right?
We're sick of all the fraud. We're sick of them shipping voters in, because that's what it amounts to.
Well, and Jason, and that's what we were basically referencing earlier. There's a lot of rural area, a lot of other places in Minnesota that aren't necessarily seen as getting representation on the national stage when it comes to congressmen, when it comes to their senators.
They say those people in Congress and Senate and House that were representing the rural areas, where were they when there was fraud? Why didn't they speak up? I'm more angry at them than Waltz for not speaking up. But all the Republicans in the House, Senate, where were they? That's what I'm more angry at. I'm sure our mayor knew about the fraud in Robbinsdale. I'm sure the mayor in Golden Valley knew about it. Did they speak up? No, because I'm sure they got paid. Say, hey, we'll give you a little more extra if you just stay quiet. A lot of people got paid somehow. A lot of favors in the pot. The whole state needs to be wiped clean. Start fresh. I swear, everything needs to be wiped clean. Start fresh, build, right? Our foundation is weak and brittle. It's about to give out. Do we just remove the house and then build another house? Or do we dig deep, remove the foundation, clean it out, rebuild the foundation, then build a house? You guys probably we'll just replace the roof, not even remove the house, not even touch the foundation, and hopefully it doesn't collapse. We need clean house across the entire board. Accountability.
But when it comes to the local representation, that's why you see it a lot closer in the State House and even in the Minnesota Senate. They only have a one-seat majority, the Democrats. But as Jason points out, the big name that people are referencing is Amy Klobuchar, who is the senator from Minnesota currently, obviously has won statewide elections there before.
A nationally known name.
Exactly, and when it comes to name recognition alone, being on ballot for a governor race, I think Jason pointed out very well. I'm glad that he called in that
her name is well known. I know her very well. And there's not one thing that she said at all that would get my vote. Nothing. I hope she doesn't run. I truly hope she does not run. But then again, she could.
Yeah,
and she better have a plan on how to deal with the whole fraud, because I have a plan. And be the most transparent plan you've ever seen, to the point where other states may want to copy it, because that's how advanced and transparent it's going to be. And everybody's going to like it too. And money will be a lot harder to travel from point A to point B to point C, because there'll be so much transparency. I'm trying not to say too much more until the next video.
Conservative, that probably is the name you are scared of. You're not scared of them going further left on paper like some of the representatives that you've seen there. You know, the Attorney General there being Keith Ellison. You know that that is the state where Ilhan Omar is a representative from. I don't think that the state probably is as concerned about them going on paper that far left, but it is when you have an establishment Democrat like Amy Klobuchar that could potentially win the governorship.
Good morning.
Minnesota has a lot of work. You know, I know, the impeachment is coming. I pray that it goes smooth. I think he will step down prior to the impeachment, because I don't think he really wants to deal with it. I think he wants to kind of walk away with his head held high before being impeached. So he may just step down because he's going to see all the evidence stacked against him. If I was him, I'll just step down at this point, rather than deal with the whole impeachment, embarrassment pretty much. But we have to also look at the lieutenant governor. We have to look at anybody that's touched money, all the mayors across, the senators, the House members, everybody. We have to do a major sweep across all the finances, all the programs, everything. Like, we need Doge to come in and do a sweep through and see where is all this money going at, right? Who knew about it? That's what I want to know. Who else knew about all this fraud that we're not even mentioning, because, and maybe the Democrats are pretty much throwing Waltz under the bus in hopes that people are talking about him and not about them specifically, and hopefully thinking if he gets impeached, that'll be it, right? No, we need to find everybody that was involved, that knew about it, that didn't speak about it, and go after him, right? We need to clean house, right? I want to tell you a quick story here, quick before I end it, right? So, I started working at Denny's as a night manager. Oh, it's 42 minutes already. I just love talking. Anyway, so I got a job as a night manager at Denny's, right? I was working in Bloomington location, I believe it was. Bloomington. And I was training. And after I finished training, the story that happened there too, but maybe for another time, I get transferred over to the new Denny's location in Snelling's, right? Snelling and University. Brand new location, right? They've been open for probably 2-3 months, and they were looking for a night manager to kind of take over. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. It's closer to my house. I live in Roseville, so just down Dale Street and over in Snelling. And so my job for the first week was just to stand there and just observe, kind of get the feel of it, right? I swear, cops were being called every night there. Servers were yelling at the customers. Customers were yelling at the servers. Manager was coming in yelling at the customers. People, it was just chaos. And I am like, what the bleep is going on here? This is not how you take care of customers. This is not how you, do things. This is not how to, cool down the tensions, right? And so after watching, observing, making mental notes, the night manager says, all right, good luck, you're on your own. And so the first thing I did was gather all the servers. And I said, do not call 911 at all, right? If you feel like your life is in danger, go behind the counter. If you still feel like your life is in danger, go to the kitchen. If you feel like your life is still in danger, go out the back door. By then, I should have intervened, right? And I should have dealt with it by then, right? Now, if there's a gun, if there's seriously bodily harm, fist fights, it's hard to break up. Yeah, call 911, of course, but do these steps first before you call 911. I said, do not yell at the servers, right? If you have any issues with it, you come to me right away, and I'll take care of it, right? I'll take over the table if I have to, right? I'll do whatever I can to support you. That way you're successful, and the customers are happy, and can have a smooth running shift, right? One of the servers yelling at the customer, and she comes like she was supposed to, right? And it's like, I can't deal with this. Like, fine, just take care of the other tables. I'll take over the customer. Hi, my name is Russ. I'll be your server for the rest of the evening. I have you. What can I do to take your order, right? And she's back there on the phone. She's back there on the phone calling 911. On the phone, and the guy stands like, I know you're calling the cops. I'm like, sir, she is not calling the cops. She goes, I spoke to her about not calling 911, so I assume she's not. Like, and he says, I know she's calling 911, and she in the back says, yeah, I'm calling 911. This guy, big black guy, he's like 6 foot 4 inches, like freaking tall, fucking muscular guy. He's like in shape, and I'm like, he just stood up, I'm like, crap, it's like, I'm thinking, okay, if this breaks into a fight, how can I take him down? Because I'm ex-military, right? And so I'm like, okay, like, how can I calm the situation down? At the same time, in my mind, I'm prepared to take this guy down, because this guy will probably put up a good fight. And I turn around and tell the server, get back in the kitchen. Go in the kitchen. So she goes around the kitchen and looks at the window, starts yelling. And I says, get out of here. That night, after I finally calm the customer down, I go to the server and said, you're done. Pack up and go. By the end of the week, I fired all of my servers, right? Cleaned house, because they were taught a certain way of how to do stuff, right? That's not how I want them to do it. So I had to clean house, clean the foundation, remove the old foundation, and replace it with new servers. And the general manager's like, you can't fire my servers. I'm like, if you want me to be the manager, I'm gonna fire all the servers. I want new servers. And so I sat down with the interviews and I said to all the servers, this is what I expect, right? I had a list. And they said, no problem. For the rest of that week, after I got my servers, not a single call to the cops. Everybody came in, sat down, ordered, ate, and walked out, right? Everything was running smooth. Even the day shift, the morning shift people wanted to come and work at night because they knew the type of leader I was, right? And the morning manager will be complaining to the general manager saying, yo, Ross is trying to steal my servers. I'm like, I'm not trying to steal anybody. They're wanting to come work the night shift because the way the system I had in place was working and was smooth. And my servers were getting tipped well, and I would help take tables, and the tips would go to them and not to me, even though I took care of it because, I got paid someone, okay, but I want to keep the servers. So I paid to make sure the tips went to the servers, right? And they followed my rules. And with the rules, things worked really well, So that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes we have to clean house. We have to, remove the foundation completely and rebuild the foundation because right now it's cracked. It's old. It's 150 plus years old, right? It's not working. We need new foundation. We pull the old out, put the new foundation in. Now, it's gonna be very challenging. I'm not gonna lie to you. Building a foundation is not cheap. It's time consuming. You have to be patient, right? I have a plan. I believe it will work, and I have people. Hopefully, some people will support and help. If I ask for help, I hope they will come and help. Because when people ask for my help, I'll help. I'm the first one to help if I'm able to. So that's what I kind of want to do. If I'm running I am running for governor. Sorry. As a governor, future governor, hopefully, I want to remove the old foundation out and rebuild that foundation, right? That can support future stuff. That's transparency that people can trust. Trust but verify, right? That's very important. And I want people, the citizens of Minnesota, to be able to verify at any time, right? Very easy, the click of a button. I'll go into details of that more later. So anyway, the impeachment, I think it's just a big show. It's just a bunch of fireworks that people will be looking at, but the true issue is what's beneath, who's shooting the fireworks, right? That's where we really have to look at everything else, not the fireworks themselves, but everything below the fireworks. Ross Nova, shooting forward, brighter, bolder, for a better tomorrow. Thank you.